mechanical engineer. I'm from Winterport, Maine, and I went to Hampton Academy for high school, and then I went on to the University of Maine, where I got my bachelor's in chemie. While I was there, I did a co-op in the paper industry, and I was part of the Pulp and Paper Foundation, which I'm sure you've heard of.
You still paid for?
Well, I really didn't know about the Pulp and Paper Foundation until like my junior year.
Oh.
So yeah, the interest rate of my student loans just went up to like 14% last month. So I'll be paying those off as soon as I can.
14%?
Yeah, this is like a credit card rate, right? It's insane. But as soon as your grace period is over, up they go.
How long was that?
I don't even know. I think it's like a year. It depends on the loan.
Is that typical for student loans to go up like that? I've not heard that.
Some of the other
3%, like what, 8 years ago?
Some of the the cap on like the subsidized Stafford loans is 6.8%, but that's while the grace period is.
Really? And then after
that, they can put it up to wherever they want, which is insane. People don't realize that. Good to know, huh? Pass that on to your kids.
So that's like worth buying a house and taking out an equity loan and paying off that other loan, right?
Yeah, it's
I mean, you got to figure something out to get rid of that.
It's worth getting a credit card with an introductory rate.
Exactly.
And paying it off, which is insane.
Wow.
But anyways, I digress.
All right, so you graduated when?
I graduated in 2008, so I'm a greenhorn, essentially. But I did a pulp and paper co-op while I was at the university at SAPI in Westbrook.
University of
Maine, Orono. And so it was just kind of a natural progression to stay in the paper industry. I wanted to be able to stay in Maine, at least for a little while, kind of transition into my adult life. So I work for NewPage in Rumford. I'm a technical engineer. I'm working on my Greenbelt certification for Six Sigma, which our company is really big into.
No, I saw that in another term. What does that mean?
Well, the Six Sigma is a business/process management tool. It was developed in the 80s by Motorola. So it's basically a way to improve quality, reduce variation, make things cheaper. But it's a very structured methodology, a set of statistical tools that you use to solve problems. And a lot of companies are interested in this because you can save huge dollars by doing these types of projects, like waste reduction, that sort of thing. So I'm working on getting my certification in that. Our company is really big into it. But I work in the technical department. Basically, we support the production areas, doing chemical substitution trials, trying to reduce waste, make things faster and easier for our operators, that sort of thing. But
I'm sorry if I missed the introduction.
NewPage in Rumford.
NewPage? NewPage.
NewPage, yep.
Is that the paper mill there?
Yep.
So it's not Mead anymore?
No.
Okay. I wasn't aware of
that. Well, they switch hands like that. NewPage is a new company. It was part of Mead, and then they acquired Stora Enso, which is a European paper company. They still have a couple of facilities in Canada and the States. So we're 10 facilities, most of which are in the Midwest, but we do have the one location in Rumford. And we have one in Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, and then the rest are out west. So that's me. Do you guys have any questions?
I do, actually. My dad's in management at a paper mill, and so I've been a part of that my whole life. Do you find the environment comfortable as a woman?
That's a good question. When I first got into engineering, it's very dramatic how many more men there are than women. And there's almost a little bit of headbutting at first, because a lot of the young guys are used to being the smartest in their class and the biggest deal, and they don't know what to think with these smart, able-minded women coming into the picture. I mean, some of the guys that I became extremely close with, could not handle the fact that I was getting better grades than them when we first started at UMaine. So it was kind of interesting to see that, but there's a realization, after some exposure that, oh wow, these people are equal to me. They're, high-performing people. So that was my sort of first experience with it, but going into the workplace, There are women in engineering and STEM-related jobs in the paper industry. I would almost say maybe more than some of the other manufacturing fields. I don't know if that's true, but, you know, a paper mill is not a clean, tidy lab. It's big equipment, it's loud, there's, you know, water on the floor, your feet get wet, you get chemicals on your clothes. I mean, I wear jeans and like a polo shirt to work every day, and some days I come home covered in stuff. But at our mill, there are 2 women in my department that have been there for almost 30 years, so they're like real veterans. And when they graduated, one of them in particular, she graduated from SUNY ESF, which is a big paper school, and went to work out in Michigan at a really big paper mill, and she was the first woman who had ever worked in that mill.
Wow.
Which is crazy, and she had to really bust her butt to, you know, prove herself. But there's 2 women in my department other than myself. There's a young production engineer woman who graduated a couple of years before me at UMaine, who also works at our mill. We've got women in our new rotational program. We've got supervisors and managers who are women. So it's actually, I was pleasantly surprised with how many women were there. And actually on our hourly workforce, we have a union in our mill. There's a good percentage of women in that part of the mill as well, which is like, oh, like that's a tough lady. She can pull her weight out there. Because those are sometimes physically demanding jobs, but they're good paying jobs, and they can stay in our, you know, our rural area with their families. So I was pretty impressed, actually. Very impressed. So,
when did you decide you were going to go into engineering?
Well, in high school, honestly, in middle school, I hated science. I hated it. And I didn't really like math either. I was like, science and social studies, get out of here. But in high school, I had a couple of teachers that did a lot of like demonstration type learning. Like they'd do a demonstration that looked really fancy and cool, and then they'd say, okay, so what does this mean in the real world? An example being, we had this cool galvanization demonstration where we actually had, you know, a battery hooked up with the electrodes to these pieces of metal, and it was like in a solution, and you could like actually see the, you know, formation of the galvanized surface, just like it would be on like a piece of galvanized stovepipe or whatever. And, you know, you learn about why doesn't that stuff rust? Like, how does that work? And it's just like, wow, this is like, it actually works, it's in the real world, and it's important. So those demonstrations really encouraged me to kind of investigate things a little bit more. And I did a merits internship. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Maine research internships for teachers and students. It's a federally funded program. I'm not sure exactly who runs it, but it's for juniors in high school. Get your pen and paper out, because the applications are going to be due like in February or March, I think. But
so merits, that's for the
summer program.
It's a summer program. It's not just at UMaine though. There's a handful of UMaine professors that do participate in it, and they, you know, bring these juniors in. And there are also internships for teachers. I don't know as much about that, but so they bring the juniors in. And they do, you know, an internship like a college student might do. They actually are assigned a project, and at the end, everybody comes back together, and you present what you learned, what kind of stuff you worked on. And I actually did forestry research while I was in the program, which is not really anything to do with what I do now, but it kind of gave me a little bit of confidence, like, wow, like I'm capable of actually doing research. Like I'm working with graduate students, you know, and that was really cool.
And it was UMaine?
Well, some of the internships are at UMaine, and some of them are at like technology and science related businesses in the state. So I'm trying to think of some of the things that people did while I was there. I think there's like some sort of a aerospace developing company somewhere in central Maine. I don't know exactly what it was. Somebody worked there. But there's all different businesses that do it. It was awesome, and I highly recommend that because that, for me, that sealed the deal. Like I was kind of starting to enjoy science. Like I was asking a lot of questions. The math, I was still, like I'd rather not be doing that because it didn't have so much practical application at that point. But once I got in there and actually did an experiment, like designed and ran my own experiment, I was sold. That's what did it for me.
Do you have to use the math in that now? That's the biggest question as a high school guidance counselor.
Absolutely.
Like, when am I really going to use this calculus
it's funny.
stuff,
It's funny you say that. I had that exact question on the conclusion page of my slide in the presentation this morning. Am I ever going to use this? Yes, I have a calculator on my desk and I use it every day.
One of the reasons I'm here is